Oh, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Ball Over Passion. I'm your boy at George V underscore AFC, and we are back with another video, another win against United. And these are I wonder who's late. This was me, but ironically, I was on time, and then I got another call. So I'm gonna call for a little bit of a medical emergency. I'm gonna take that. Actually, that is my excuse. But guys, welcome back to another vid, and we're here to talk about United. That was a big win, big emotional win. I think that we need to kind of talk about the performance a bit. I was, not in love with the performance generally, but I feel as though that the team had to work on trying to run through their emotions a bit and try to get into the game. So the biggest thing is emotional win. Great win from perspective of rivals and stuff. But guys, I'll throw it to you first, Curran. What did you make of the game?
I'm not late. Well, what's this? I'm late. I'm not the one that was late. I turn up on time here. All right. Don't worry
You
about
were
it.
lost.
I was lost, but what time did I get here? I got here at 8:58 on time. Anyway, the game itself was, up and down. I think it was a really boring game. I don't know about you guys. Like just the game itself. There's a lot of, especially that first half, very, very boring. But we'll get into the pressing structures and all the out of possession stuff, as well as our line and their line and the possession and all this stuff. But for me, um, we've always talked about winning ugly, and winning ugly is something that, even though the performances aren't there at times, and I think that we are still struggling performance wise, I do think that winning in this fashion really will, give the team a bit of a boost. I just think we need to talk a lot about the balance of the team. I think George mentioned it constantly. I've mentioned it as well. The balance, especially on that left hand side, is off. The right hand side dynamics didn't look very good either. But we still managed to dominate, especially that second half, and get into our rhythm and get into some kind of ability to sustain the pressure and recycle the ball and keep the pressure on them. I just think there was a time where we kind of didn't step on their necks at all. We just kind of let the game drift and then kind of ramped it up as the second half went on. I didn't like that, but I'm just happy we won that game because we genuinely deserve to win that game. I know people are arguing otherwise, saying that, oh well, the first half we didn't really do much and they had all of the possession, and then the second half we were kind of lackadaisical and not really doing. But at the end of the day, United didn't do anything either, especially in defense. We didn't give them much, especially in that second half. And yeah, a really, really emotional win, but a really boring game. I really like if I'm gonna watch a game of football, I'm not watching that game of football. I had to watch it again for this, but I didn't want to because it's a really boring game.
Well, yeah, and I think like the difference. I'll set up with some stats that we've got from Chris, and then Chris, I'll let you know kind of what your thoughts were on the general performance of the game. But we were talking kind of just off air really quickly about kind of analyzing that period of possession that kind of United had maybe in the first half for a little bit, but then other than that, there was really Arsenal from a second half perspective, kind of dominating the possession. But in terms of an attack kind of perspective, we really dominated our own attack at the beginning of the half, really as a spike, and then after that, kind of carried majority of the threat. I think there was only one period in that kind of 10 to 15 minutes before the half that United carried a little bit more threat than us, but is very fleeting. And I think ultimately it kind of resulted in us really winning quite a bit of duels generally throughout the match. We ended up having, I would say, kind of a majority of the field tilt. I think it was something like 80 something percent field tilt in the majority of the match. So there was definitely a level of control that Arsenal had in the match. But generally, I thought our offensive play was poor, and I think that our knitting of final actions needed a little bit of work. What did you think? In terms of the game generally, and in terms of dominance and control, because I think there was a lot of people that felt that the score line flattered, and of course we'll get into how much of the correct score line that we predicted happened a little bit later. But what did you make of the game?
I thought it was we dominated the game in different ways. I think in the first half we forced them to go long a lot. I think in the first half, Onana had 7 unsuccessful long balls. So we forced the keeper to go long a lot. Like we would block the passing lanes to Bruno to Ericsson. They didn't really grow into the game until like that 31-minute period where they probably was their best period of the game up until after the goal. But before that, I think we did well off the ball. We weren't as aggressive as people probably liked, but there was no, I don't think there was enough danger for us to really be aggressive. I didn't like the respect we gave them. I think we could have played that game dominating possession like 65%, probably for 90 minutes like we did in the second half. But again, like I don't think the danger was there in the first half to really do that. I think again we created their chance. Havertz lazy pass really created their goal. And I think it was a great change to then respond. And after that, we grew into the game. But overall, I don't think it was the greatest game to watch. Like Karen saying, it was probably one of our more boring games. But I think we will become a more boring team. Like I prefer where like we don't see chances back and forth for both teams. I prefer like where the only real clear-cut chances, apart from maybe that Martial chance in like the 55th minute, I think it was, they didn't have one. And then we had like the Havertz chance we'll get into. He's had another clear-cut chance missed, but at least every game now, pretty much, he's had a clear-cut chance. Same as Saka. He missed his one as well. Last game, he missed one as well. So that's what, 0.4 XG. I know people don't like XG, but yeah, that's 0.9 XG in just 2 chances missed by Saka. And I think it's 0.7 for Havertz in just 2 games. So they're missing big XG chances. It's bad that they're missing, but it's also good that we keep creating chances. Yeah, we're generating chances that people are literally asking how did they miss? Like both of the chances, how did they miss? And then yeah, like our subs came on and were impactful again. Jesus got the winner. Vieira was involved in the winner. So I think overall, Arteta will probably look back on it and say it was a good experiment, a good game. But like for me, the players look like this system or the players look like there's a long way to go. There was weird tweaks. Like I was even asking George before the game, like, why do you think Zinchenko was on the right side of the pivot a lot more than the left side of the pivot? Or why was Zinchenko touchline wide so much? And all these questions that were just different. Like there was a difference with the system and the shape. This 90 minutes compared to probably maybe the whole season actually. Like the left back was never right centre mid. Like this whole season. So it was different, but I think we're gonna be more boring. Like to get better, we have to be more boring, I think.
Well, Mikel had kind of talked about us being, I don't know, something like 36 formations in different phases and stuff.
Yeah.
And, you could see the experimentation of it in general. The one thing that I do want to touch on is kind of that pivot role with Zinchenko kind of being a little bit different. And, towards the end of the first half, we saw Zinchenko more wide, and ironically it was for the goal that switched. And I think when you first had it, maybe there was this redundancy problem with kind of Zinchenko and Declan Rice both being able to progress and do a lot of the same things in that left hand side. And so we see what could happen if he did move a little bit more to the right hand side. And of course we saw it at times. I think Everton with the goal, we've seen Zinchenko there, but there was a lot more purposeful period of him operating in the right half space. It wasn't just a free roll of him drifting. It was a lot more purposeful about him taking up that right hand side, in this game. And so I don't think I loved it. I don't think he was poor at it. I think he was just quite average. And I think what we were trying to do, it was really clear. I think I made a message in the group chat. We're trying to replicate Partey. What Zinchenko's doing at the beginning of the game here, stepping into the middle of the 3, progressing so that we can keep Gabriel wide, was a big portion, I think, about that right-hand side tweak, because he kind of operated as the center of a 3, and then he would just step into the right-hand side of the pitch. And that was clearly something that we were using Thomas Partey for. And so I think that was kind of the role that we may have used Thomas for in this match if he was fit. And so we were just tweaking it with kind of Zinchenko, who offered that. But, Curran, I'll go to you first. There was definitely a low block by United. There were times that we found Ericsson drop in along with Casemiro into the back line. It was almost a 6-4. Like they were very, very deep. But one thing that they did have was Andre Onana and those long balls. And there was clearly an attempt to catch kind of, Ben White out. And there was at least that attacking impetus to try to get Marcus Rashford out. How did you feel that we dealt with kind of our press? Because we weren't man to man. We were a lot more mid block, and there was a lot of fans that were questioning it. Weren't we so gung ho with the press at the beginning? Did you feel that this mid block pressing scheme was built specifically for United because of the lack of build up, or what did you feel we did kind of off the ball that was a benefit in this game?
Look, I think I'm looking up now. I'm just the long pass percentage for Onana wasn't actually that great. If you remember it, I think it was something like 38%. I'm just looking up now. Um, I think that it's quite clear this was a plan for United, and I think we've tried to. Will Mikel has tried to learn from his mistakes in terms of press baiting. I think there's been too many times we've been baited into pressing, and you're seeing. I mean, you remember the Etihad game? God, I don't remember that game. The Etihad game where Holding was basically pinned on Haaland and spun, and then you're looking at a situation where there's plenty of space in behind, and you're just at the mercy of the opposition at that point. So I just think that you're looking at a team that wanted to set up for the counter attack, and we just didn't want to let it happen. They had something. They were happy in their own half, and we were happy to let them have it in their own half. Waste your own time, go for it, fellas. And I'm saying, it's a really boring game because, especially in that first half, it was just okay. Onana, ping out, bring back, Lissandro, Lindelof back, Lissandro up, maybe to Ericsson. Ericsson tried to turn, nothing on back. So it was just a case where we're really looking at a game where we were just content with not letting them have their space, and if they went long, we weren't letting them have the ball at all. So I just think we knew what we were coming up against, and we knew what we didn't want to let them do. And I think this is going to be a case where you're not looking at just this for United. You're looking at teams like Brighton, teams like City, where they're trying just to lure you in, and hit. I think we're going to be seeing this a lot more. And you mentioned on Twitter about the defensive transition and how we were actually set up very well for the defensive transition. And I completely agree. I think Mikel saw what teams were trying to do to us and thought we're not going to let that happen. I think both teams actually defensively were quite good. I think, especially with the doubling up of United's wingers, they understood what we were going to try to do. I mentioned on Twitter before the game that there was if they try to go too gung ho with their press, they'll just leave central spaces open, and Ten Hag noticed that, and he said that before the game about his rest defense and making sure that they weren't leaving massive spaces in between their midfield and their back line. So I think both teams tried to adapt to what the other were trying to do to them quite well. I do also think there was a lot of poor build from both teams. I think I know Odegaard had a goal, but I think he was way too high at times, and we were seeing that recycling between Odegaard, Saka, Rice way too much, and we were trying to cycle through that triangle again and then switch it out to the other side. But Martinelli to take on Wan-Bissaka, and I think it was just because he was so high. It didn't really give him that impetus to really take control of the game from the middle of the park, where like he usually does, and try to find passes, even to just to find that switch himself to Martinelli. So
I think he was too wide.
Yeah, too wide, too high. Yeah,
I think there was times when, especially when Zinchenko was flipped to be the right centre mid, Odegaard had to be maybe even a bit more central, just between the centre back and the DM, and he just didn't want to be there for long periods of the game. Like, he wouldn't just stand in the pocket to just receive the ball there. And it made our progression to the final third a lot slower. And when we did get chances to break, it usually was just Martinelli 1v1, just idling with Aaron Wan-Bissaka to bring players up the pitch. And we just couldn't. We didn't really catch them on the counter at times. And I think Martinelli did well 1v1, and I think he did cause Wan-Bissaka a bit of problems off the ball and probably should have received the ball a bit more, because Wan-Bissaka just didn't really know who to choose to mark between him and Havertz at times. And if we were probably better with our passes, Havertz or Martinelli gets a better chance in between them. But I think, yeah, we let United sit deep because they're not used to it. Like, this was the most passes they've had all season deep. Onana had more passes than De Gea has ever had in his career. So it's just a very different role for the keeper. And I just think they're not used to it, so they couldn't capitalize. Maybe until the second half, they didn't really play around our press at all. Until the second half, they didn't really have like times that cutback. Well, not the second half, but like the 45th minute. That cutback from Dallo, I think it was, that Fernandez stopped. That was the only time they played around our press, and it did take time for them to learn what to do with the ball. So what to do with so much of the ball. I think they had more passes in the first half than they had the whole game versus Wolves, which was the most passes they've had this season. So yeah, they just didn't know what to do, and I think we took advantage of that very well, like their naivety in their own half. And also like I think they didn't have a touch in our half in our third, like in the final third for them, obviously, like till the 27th minute. So I think we did a good job despite being boring, so-called boring. But yeah, like George, you said to me that you would have preferred us to be more proactive, like more aggressive. Like, what impact do you think that would have had on the game?
It's more from a possession sense, I think. I'm okay with out of possession. I would have preferred the in possession press specifically because I feel that allows for you to collect balls a little bit higher up the pitch. We started deeper. Because of the mid block, our turnover meant that we started kind of in our first phase as opposed to starting in the final third over there. And I think that would have allowed us to get our wingers closer to goal because I agree that Martinelli was a little bit too wide for my liking. Saka didn't have a good game, but he was also kept wide for a lot of it. And I think, the best form of Saka and Martinelli are them on the inside. And so the big thing was I had hoped for a little bit more bravery from our interiors. I thought Kai and Odegaard had very poor games, the both of them. Odegaard himself, he gets the goal, but I think, he struggled to really be as vertical as he was previously. So he had another poor game in a big game. And I think Kai Havertz, look, I don't want to kill him, but, he was ineffective. And I think despite
No, I do want to kill him. Like, genuinely, like, it was not. No, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. Look, I'm sorry. There's a lot of stuff he's doing well into the out of possession stuff, making sure that he's trying to be in the right space at times, especially in that second half. But he's not putting enough pace on his passes, and he's not striking the ball cleanly in the box. I'm just not happy. I'm not happy at all, and I hope he continues to get better. I hope Mikel knows what exactly to do with him. We all three of us on this show have said switch the midfielders around, get Rice, get Havertz on the right, get Odegaard on the left, and watch if that changes anything. I just think it's just like this comment here is perfect. He ran into Eddie, he ran into Martinelli, he ran into other people. Like, genuinely, like, there were times where him and Martinelli were about a meter away from each other in the box.
Well, I've talked about it for so long that we need to stop this redundancy, and we need to look. I think we have an interior problem. I think we need to look at winger complementary pairs. I've said this so long on the channel. I've said this for over a year now. When you have Bukayo Saka, he's a ball to feet winger. You need to start to pair him with somebody that's more of a space invader. That could include Kai, by the way. Like, it doesn't have to be him that switch. It doesn't have to be my favorite name, which is Emile Smith-Rowe, to perform that role. But it could be Kai, and I think the frustrating part. Did you guys catch his press match kind of conference? I think it was
I watched the entire thing.
Yeah, and he talks about Kai being an option on the right, and he talks about there being different opportunities for our interiors and combinations, but he's not experimenting with it, which is a little bit frustrating. But one of the big things that I did want to talk about and kind of get, Chris, your opinion on, I thought Gabriel had a monster game. First game back that we've seen of 90 minutes this season. He gives this team a level of control in the duels that I think no other defender does in our club. And not just that, I'm going to piggyback because we kind of reference, look, the goal that we get caught out on, I don't think there's much to really talk about. It's like a ball through to Rashford that he's clinical on. There's not much that Ramsdale can do. I think Ben White could maybe be a little bit tighter, but he's worried. If you notice, Saliba's doing the exact same action. The two of them are literally replicating their exact same defensive positioning. And look, Ramsdale does well to even get tips to that. That's a very good shot. It's not
No,
really
no, no.
being
You're
saved.
not understanding. It's
I
all.
saw people
It's,
saying Raya would save that.
yeah,
No, it's
Raya would save
ridiculous.
that.
Yeah,
Raya is smaller than Ramsdale, for God's sake. Like, I don't know
That
what
goal
kind of
just that goal literally just comes from Havertz being a bit lazy with a pass.
No,
It is.
genuinely,
Eriksen being
that
the
it's
one
not
that
just if you're talking about the defensive attributes of that goal, like in the box, White steps on Saliba's toes there. He needs to meet Rashford high, and then knows Saliba's behind him, so Saliba can get a block off. I think White himself, if you look back at that goal, he'd be like, I've got a step there.
But White always historically struggles against Rashford, so I kind of always expected there to be an issue there. And there was going to be a time when he lost that battle. But again, I don't think that goal is like emblematic of something horrible, because for the most part, I think Onana attempted 3 or 4 of those, and White dealt with it beautifully. And a lot of it came from our mid block.
That goal, right, is emblematic of everything Mikel wanted to stop. Everything Mikel wanted to stop was that goal. And
yes.
I know I'm not saying like I know he was fuming going into that tunnel. 100%.
Well, that pass that Rashford got was not replicated once. Like really, like it can't be replicated. Like the position Eriksen was in to receive the ball is something that you just can't really account for. Like Havertz passing across the Odegaard, not being powerful enough. Just what the team can't really do anything. Like they're all trying to recover. He's racing with Rashford. If White gets too tight, Rashford probably beats him on the outside onto his left foot, smashes it across goal, and Martial scores a rebound. Like there's not much White can really do. Like for me, I don't think.
No, I don't think. I'm not. Let me be clear. I don't think it's his fault. I just think that there's. I personally, if I'm watching that goal back, right, and this is it's easy to say in hindsight, but when I'm watching that goal back, I'm just thinking to myself, there's two defenders in the same zone at the same time. Like someone can't go at him.
Well,
even if you miss it.
The one thing that I wanted was one defender to block kind of his cut inside. You all know that's his preferred foot. And so just the way that they both ended up shaping him to allow to switch to a stronger foot. I'm okay conceding if it's a weak foot shot and you force him wide and it's just a great finish. But like the one thing that you want from a defensive aspect is blocking the far post shot. They didn't quite do that. But I guess the big point I was going to make, and I'll throw it back to Chris in terms of Gabriel, because he's responsible for the first goal, in my opinion. Go watch it back, Gabriel, and in terms of his patience, that between the line pass that he makes, which was so punchy and brilliant, by the way. He's the one that finds that opening, and it's the big reason why we end up starting out on the break. And of course, you got Martinelli with a beautiful fleck, and Zinchenko, who is wide, by the way, another one for those KT herders that have gone out on loan. Zinchenko, wide touchline again, knocks it inside to kind of Eddie Nketiah. And look, once we find that spot, him and Martinelli kind of do a really good job about playing around the press. And of course, Martin Odegaard crashes the box in kind of beautiful fashion. Martinelli with a great assist to find Martin Odegaard there. And Martin Odegaard with a strong finish. It's one of the 2 times out of 10, right, Chris? That he cuts across his body and does well. And we're back up within a minute. What do you guys feel is important about us kind of restoring that quick recovery from a goal sense after being scored on? Because that was something that at the beginning of last season was such a trademark of Arsenal. You would get scored on if you did, and then we would score within a minute or 2. How did you guys feel that was important, particularly with United and the narrative of the game?
I think one, the positions we had the ball in, like in the 27th minute, was probably the first time we were all sat on the halfway line, like on the ball, because I think defensively we were on the ball, but we'd only get the ball like from long ball turnovers, and you have to start from your half. So when we had the ball, Saliba plays that big switch to Zinchenko on his left foot, and we have the ball past the halfway line already, and then, as you said, Gabriel plays that beautiful ball between the lines, and I think it's great that Martinelli received the ball pretty much in line with the box. Like it wasn't touchline, like he was a lot closer to goal than he was before that. And I think, they got 2 out of 10. I think one, I wanted to say, like, I think the 2 times out of 10 maybe has increased, because I think that type of finish.
The 7 out of 10 is definitely decreased. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, because you got the Chelsea goal, 2 versus Chelsea actually, Fulham. So I think the probability is probably increased in his favour. Congratulations to him for improving. Apparently now he's a top 5 ball striker in the league. But yeah, I think we just got a lot.
Can we just quickly discuss Odegaard though? Because I think there's got to be like I'm not going to go in on him because he's improved a lot this past season, like a hell of a lot. All three of us when he signed we wanted Madison. It was quite clear, and there were times that he's really just frustrated us and has really been annoying. But he's improved a lot this past season. He was one of the main reasons we challenged for the title, and I don't know what has got into his head, but he's gone from taking way too many touches and not releasing to going, I'm Kevin De Boom now. I'm going to release. I'm going to shoot on sight, and this is my thing. I'm going to shoot from outside the box, and I'm going to try and win the hero ball at myself. I don't know why he stopped. There's too much like extremism in his game. Either he's taking 50 touches and not releasing, or he's just going for shots. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that he's like, oh, it's amazing. Like he had a bad game yesterday. I'm not going to say he's a poor player or anything. He's clearly one of the best midfielders we have. But yesterday was poor from him. He was too wide. He's too high in build. There were spaces evacuated in the center of the pitch where he could have literally dropped in and controlled that game. There were spaces available. There were central spaces available. So why he was so wide and so high, I don't know. I don't know whether they were trying to do this whole right side overload to try and get the spaces free for White and Saka inside or White on the outside and try to get the cutbacks in. I just think it's not. The thing is, I don't even think it's that difficult. I think he just needs to be central, come inside, control the game, be the connector that he is, be the shuttler that he is. Do that role. There's no need to be this. I'm going to shoot on sight, zone 14.
Well, I'm going to say something because it was definitely an instruction from the manager because it's not just me that was saying it. You know, he was telling our forwards to get more shots. Generally, look at our forward shot totals. They've gone up this season. They haven't been in the best locations. That I think is what the critique is right now. Because it's not just Odegaard, it's even Martinelli and Saka. Like I think they both had 3 shots in this game, but if you look at the shots, they're wide and they're poor. They're not in great shot locations. So that's something that the team has to fix about where they're taking the shot locations. But fundamentally, he was asked to take more shots because he wasn't taking. And you know, I think you get more goals.
But you've gone from one extreme to the other.
Well, yeah, and he's now that. Well, that's the thing that I was following up on. Like, you know, the shot locations that he's taking are poor, and you know, he's scored a couple from outside the box, which is good. But I think now it's become a thing where he takes at least one shot outside the 18-yard box a game, and
like genuinely, right? There was a shot where last season that's an assist for Nketiah. Remember the West Ham assist where he just pokes it through, and Nketiah takes it on. Or I think it was Saka, or I can't remember who it was. The same exact location, he's taking a shot there, and you're just thinking, dude, there's no reason for you to take a shot there. There's no reason.
I think this game he was very selfish.
Very selfish.
The time where Nketiah passed him and he just started dribbling across the whole box to pass it into Onana's hands. Like,
I think this is a good point. Because the thing is, I think that he's wanted to take that responsibility in this team. I think the role that Xhaka has left, I think he's trying to be too much. He's trying to do too much, and sometimes
I think players in our team currently have a lot more responsibility than Odegaard in this current system.
But he's trying to.
I think the wingers right now are pretty isolated, and they have to create everything from the touchline and bring the ball up. I think obviously Declan Rice has a big importance on and off the ball. Gabriel indoors, like he had to deal with Anthony a lot 1v1 out wide, weirdly. But yeah, I think Odegaard just, for me, was just a bit selfish at times. Even versus Fulham, he just picked the wrong shots. Like there was times where
but genuinely, if he has, for example, the Leicester game at home in our top 4 appearance, in our top 4 challenge, you know, the Leicester home game, where he's just in the middle, taking the touches, pulling the strings, instead of going on this whole.
I do remember that.
You know the game I'm talking about. That game where he's
2-0, I think.
2-0. Yeah, exactly. He has one of those games instead of this game where he's out wide trying to do tippy tappy ball with Rice.
Well,
And
I think the frustrating
Odegaard.
thing is he's doing this in a side of the pitch that doesn't need tip
Him
tap
to be,
control. Let's
yeah,
say, like if you were to be that ball dominant on the left hand side, which by the way, with a touchline winger in Martinelli who likes big spaces, then of course you're going to end up having that. If you want that hero ball gene, it's going to be accepted more. But guys, guess what? Who's also there? Zinchenko, and that becomes the redundancy. That is
yeah.
where
Them two together doesn't. It
Doesn't
doesn't
make
make
any
sense if he's still going to want to drop.
Yeah.
like genuinely, like the other thing, especially with Zinchenko coming into this 6 role that he was doing, because he was trying to be he was basically the lower man in the pivot, and Rice was a bit higher. With him there, you're thinking surely you want Odegaard a bit higher to have that someone to connect with for Rice, so he could play maybe a 1-2 with, or go and play into him, so he could take a couple of touches and distribute. Like he's doing this right to left switch to Martinelli very well this season, like especially against Forest, he did it quite well. So you're thinking, okay, get him into that zone and get the switch on and get the runners in, because you've got 2 runners there that are clearly on each other's toes. If you've got 2 runners there, surely you want to find them, with the switch, or to give them somebody to run onto. So I just think that if you're going to be that wide and it's not looking, there's no real need for him to be that wide. Even if he was inside, he could still combine with Saka. He can do his normal underlap that he does. He can go center, make the underlap run. Saka can come across. It can still work, but I just think I was frustrated with how wide and how high he was. I feel like he was pushing himself out of the game.
I think this just like to show a lot of people that probably didn't see the Zinchenko rats in the mid, but this is very like purposeful. It is a line, a 2-4, with Saka pretty narrow. That's not Saka, actually. That's Odegaard, actually. Odegaard. Yeah. That's why I think he should have been a lot of the game. Like stay between.
No, but guys, do you see where the ref is?
Saka, but, yeah.
Do you see where the ref is, guys? Like that, you put Odegaard there. You get him
but
somewhere.
No
exactly, no one is there. No one's is central. There's no. There's the center is completely evacuated. Like you can see Eddie on the edge of the screen couldn't make a run, I suppose, but the actual central space, look how much space there is. Like if you put Odegaard there, you put someone there that can control the game. He can turn into space, maybe switch it wide, maybe run into space himself.
And look, it doesn't have to be Odegaard. It can be Trossard. It can be Emile
Trossard, Emile, even Kai.
And that's going to be the big thing when we talk about Vieira being switched there and the benefits that we saw. It wasn't so much, I think, a change in personnel. It was just a change of who was receiving the ball and who has that focus. But we got to move on. So, guys, really quickly, on the goal, well, after the goal, really, we scored quickly, and then there's the second half. Kai Havertz, penalty or not?
Penalty.
I think Casemiro clips
I understand why it's not.
So, Chris, your penalty also, though?
I think Casemiro clips his ankle.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that given against us, like versus Wolves, when David Luiz clips. Whose ankle was it? It doesn't matter who it was, but he clips someone's ankle. Yeah, no, but I don't think Wan-Bissaka commits the foul there. I think
it's Casemiro.
If anyone commits a foul, it's Casemiro, but he clipped his ankle.
Well, you can see, you know what the tough part is? That's given all day. So it's a pen by the modern day standards. I don't think he gets brought down. He gets clipped on the right foot, but he goes down on the left foot.
But also, so if the foul is given, if the thing is given on a Wan-Bissaka foul, but I'm saying it's Casemiro touching his ankle, then it is a clear error.
Yeah.
If we're being very pedantic, it is a clear error. It's a clear and obvious error by the referee that Wan-Bissaka did not make that foul. So
well, and for me though, I have to be honest. I don't think it was a pen. I don't think the contact is enough for him to go down. Period. But by modern day standards, that's given as a pen in any other scenario. So you're frustrated by that sense. I still think that the right decision was made. I don't think it was a pen. But you know,
I wasn't angry. Like that's not one of the ones where you're like, that's ridiculous. I can see why it's to overturn. I do think it was because of the contact, but I'm not upset.
I think the contact was minimal.
Yeah, exactly.
For me,
That's why
Havertz should have kept going.
he
For
should
me,
Of
have.
course he should have, and he would have got a goal, and it would have been a lot better for his confidence, by the way,
Yeah,
because he's not taking the pen. So
exactly.
like, he should have kept going. And look, there is contact, and I think no matter what happens in any other team in any other game, they give that penalty. I'll be honest. Anything against us, that's a pen.
Like
And they
genuinely,
say it.
this is a very good thing. Like genuinely, like that kind of run. If Havertz makes that run like 5 or 6 times a game, no one cares. No
Well,
one's bringing up his performance. At least he's making that run that he's meant to make.
I
That's a
I
good
actually
think
run from him.
I think Eddie did very well to even get him the ball there on the outside of his boot.
did, but there's another
Um,
player that I think deserves more praise, and I want to have a section on him. And it's the guy that we all love on this channel, Declan Rice. He starts
with
that
his move.
move. He starts that move, bombing up and making a wall pass to then play it into Eddie
And he
Nketiah.
follows
Okay,
it,
And
I
yeah.
need to stop. But
He follows the pass, which like
yeah,
creates the
Yeah.
space. Because Casemiro was in 2 minds. Like, do I stay with
Oh.
Rice or do I move across the Havertz?
and it's insane that he is the one that is still closest to Kai Havertz in the box after making that run. He makes up 40 yards in this, and he's incredible, isn't he? Like Declan Rice was.
We're not like genuinely. It's an amazing run, but none of us are shocked. None of us are shocked. Like I genuinely I expected him there. Like
No,
genuine.
like I mean, I expect him to give us some show-stopping moments, but some of the stuff that he's doing in terms of even the six, the level of control that he's doing, I did say he's going to adapt quicker than a lot of people believe. He's going to do it within 6
No.
months.
Give this to Chris. Give this to Chris. Because
I
he
think
said
they'll
this
definitely-
every
lies.
from the minute he signed. Chris has been saying this. This has been the
But like,
funniest
I
thing.
think also like week in, week out, we're just seeing that people admit that they just lied about him as a player at West Ham. They just
Yeah.
saw the English stereotype. Oh, he's a road runner. He's great physically, but he does nothing on the ball. But we saw him run the midfield versus Liverpool at Anfield, run the midfield versus us at the Emirates, run the midfield versus Newcastle at St. James Park. 3 of the hardest away days in the league. And he ran the midfield. But I think now, yeah, 3 games in a row, I've predicted him to score. And he deserved the goal. Like his performance did deserve the goal. And we will get into the goal, I think. But yeah, on the pen, I think it's just a great recognition, like to pass to Eddie and notice that if he doesn't go to that space, no one will be there. So if Havertz does miss or whatever he does in that position, someone has to be there for a rebound and give an option for the pass. So yeah, I think it was just great instinct to run into the box. It shows he's more than just a normal 6, because not most 6s make that pass and just sit. They just sit. Usually, not many of them run to the box and be an option for a cutback or whatever it was. But yeah, I think we're all in agreement that it's a very weak pen, and if it's not given, we don't complain. But if it's given, again, we don't complain because it is given. Like it's very regularly given. But also, I didn't really think it was a pen. But yeah, I think.
Well, I was expecting.
And he is a bargain. I said it before that he would be a bargain at £100 million. People said you can't be that strong in the statement, but he is. He's the only player in that £100 million bracket that has really deserved his price tag, bar maybe Jude Bellingham, maybe in terms of
no, not
ones
maybe.
that move.
Jude Bellingham for now, therefore, like you could say.
Well, the reason I'm saying is because I don't think that Jude's had man of the match performances consistently in almost every game he's played. And, he's had great moments, don't get me wrong. And it's not like he's been playing poor, but, they're playing him as a 10. They're playing to really maximize Jude as a goal and assist output. Declan is running more than just goals and assists in this team. And he's coming in and he's become the leader in terms of our buildup right away. He's become a leader in terms of how this emotional control of the team, like I said it in my tweet on the review, he took the temperature down in the game. And then as the game went on, he became more vertical. He started running. He really recognizes the point when he can kind of gas pedal his way in terms of increasing tempo of a match. And I love it. And, we do have to talk about, before we get to the goal, because I do want to keep a little bit Declan Rice, but we have to talk what happened next with Bukayo Saka. Really poor finish. One thing I wanted to ask you guys, though, we know the finish is poor. Let's not talk about that too much. We know he should go across the face of goal. We know that he shouldn't be hitting it against Onana. But one thing I wanted to ask you is if you guys noticed, he got really pissed off at the team, in my opinion, and switched to the left for a good 10 to 15 minutes, Bukayo. And I think he was trying to find space himself because he recognized nobody was finding him on the right, and that had to come down from a problem in structure. What do you guys think about Bukayo kind of just shifting and taking upon himself to kind of shift over to the left
I don't
to
blame
get
him
more?
being pissed. I don't blame him being pissed at all. Genuinely, like if I was him, I'd be pissed because, like, obviously the shots on him, but the amount of times like this guy, like United had Anthony literally in a world by himself when they had the ball. Like the block was shifted left, and he would just be standing on the wing. And we had the same thing with Bukayo. Bukayo was literally stood on the line, and you have Bukayo Saka, and you're putting him on the line. It doesn't make any sense.
But also, I think the switch only happens if Jesus is on the pitch, right? Jesus was right wing. This was like the 78th minute.
Yeah.
It was really the 80th minute on the dot. It doesn't happen if Eddie's on the pitch. Like, no offense to Eddie. I think Eddie had a great game, but Jesus was touchdown right wing dribbling and Saka moves over. He should finish that. That was just he shouldn't miss that. That's
It's
2 weeks in a row, by the way. 2 weeks in a row.
Open goals, 2 weeks in a row. He's
chances that he just shouldn't miss. This is literally like Eddie was. I mean, Jesus, great dummy. I didn't think he was going to dummy. I thought he was going to shoot himself. Great dummy, and then Saka just straight at the keeper, like anywhere else, and it's in. Even if you shoot high at the keeper, it probably has a chance.
Well, what I was going with this is, mate, like you have to. This is why the type of striker Gabby Jesus is so important. He creates a level of fluidity in the offensive line that we can cause these rotations with. And when you talk about it, one of the big frustrations I have when we start to talk about potentially a new center forward down the line and a new marquee center forward is I find people keep suggesting these names that are far too central, and they don't talk about strikers that can go out wide and overload, because that has been the best part of our attack. And it doesn't have to be Gabby Jesus specifically, but it has to be a striker that is comfortable in the wide overload, that is comfortable going out wide to occupy a zone, to push our wingers inside. We're not going to get anywhere in the future if we don't get our wingers closer to goal more often.
But you really have to look, like, if you really go back and look at the goal, like we have Tommy Yarsu, left winger, really. Tommy Yarsu is touchline left wing. Martinelli drifts inside, he dribbles through two players, does a wall pass to Jesus, 1-2 with Erdegaard reverse pass to Erdegaard plays a reverse pass from Jesus to Ben White, first time into the box. I think it's perfect rotation. It's great one touch football on the edge of the box and deserved the goal, but also it's, again, like, just to emphasize, like, it's impossible to do without Gabriel Jesus. Like, he's at the heart of that attack.
Yeah.
And that the 1-2, just a dummy, like, I just think it's beautiful to see. Like, he's very different to Eddie. And for me, they both had success in this game in very different ways. I think Eddie indoors was incredible. Like, he got both centre backs on yellows. He's the reason we saw Maguire and Evans. Eddie is the only reason we saw Maguire and Evans. He got literally both of them got on a yellow because of Eddie, like, getting slide tackled in the halfway line for a counter, and Martinez quitting. Like, he's not injured at all. He's fine, gone to Argentina, but he quit. Like, Martinez quit the Eddie test, and Lindelof quit as well. Like, Lindelof, again, we didn't speak about that, but he should have got a red card.
Yep.
He kicked Eddie in the head as the last man. Didn't get a red card, but yeah, I saw people in the comments saying Saka's burnout, even though he had a summer off, deserves to be dropped, wherever it is. I just think, like, it's a different role, and I think Martinelli just looks better than Saka right now, because I just think Martinelli, isolated on the is always going to do what he's always going to run. Like, he's just always going to be able to run, even though he's not having the most success. But I don't think it's fatigue. Like, missing a header.
No, it's poor positioning. It's poor positioning.
Not even the that, but I'm saying missing a header last week, 6 yards out, is not excusable. He should score. And yesterday, he has a first time finish from 10 yards out. He should score. Like,
it doesn't have to be an overarching reason. It can just be poor play. Like, it could just be like, he can do better, he can improve, and it's not something that you just take about a specific trait about him. But when you have a look at it,
a chance in the PSV game in the Champions League, and maybe we see Reece play more time at right wing because he was
Well,
good as well when he
I
came
was
in.
gonna say, so like the big thing, right? Because I want to get into two things to end the pod, right? So firstly, I'm gonna go over these things quickly because I don't think they
Mm.
need more, notice than this. But Gabriel, brilliant offside trap for Garnacho.
Oh,
It's
not
clear
the.
offside,
I
but it's
think
just
brilliant
world
might be
class play.
underdoing
No.
it.
Look. Okay, look.
Brilliant
His
might be
head,
underdoing
his
it.
head, his head is somehow in front of his shoulder. Okay, let's get that right first of all. So it's clearly on. Shut up. It's just ridiculous.
Even Gabriel Jesus made a point out after the game that you have to praise Gabriel. It's incredibly intelligent what he did.
It's
Yeah.
incredibly, it's
Like,
world class. The awareness to do that at top speed, to execute kind of that level of body control, it was excellent. And I
Mm.
feel that people broadly give kind of Gabriel the credit in duels and stuff, but they don't praise his in-game intelligence in terms of defensive lines
Yeah.
and distances. And it's phenomenal. It's why he's probably one of the best channel defenders at the club. And I
One
just think, well, one of, because
Yeah.
Saliba is a good one, but he is the best one. And
Yeah.
beyond just that, by the way, I think Gabriel Jesus is another one that had a very strong cameo. Tomiyasu had a strong cameo, but there's two topics I want to talk to. And one is set pieces, and then one is basically the subs and kind of Reece Nelson. So I'll give it to Chris. You kind of really touched on it with Reece. I'll give you the sub. What did you think in terms of the subs? Were they a little late? And
Yes.
also, were the cameos good in terms of what you saw?
Yes, all the subs were a little late.
Mm-hmm.
I think by the Rashford chance, like Martial chance of his left foot, Ramsdale saves. So the pen really 59th minute, 60th minute, the pen shout. We should have had our subs on. Martinelli coming off in the 90th minute was poor for me. I think we needed a fresher player to just keep testing Wan-Bissaka 1v1. Their whole defense by the 83rd minute, their whole defense is really different. Really, it's, the new centre back partnership. I think Reece again was involved in getting the corner for the goal. There was arguments between like Peter Schmeichel, was it a corner, was it not? I'm not sure. I'm still not clear on that. But yeah, I think Reece again deserves more time. I think he's probably the most underplayed, not paid, just to make it clear, underplayed player in the Premier League. I think he deserves a lot. In fact, that's wrong. That's Smith Rowe. But yeah, he doesn't get enough minutes for what, especially with how our wingers have looked this season. It's not like they've been dropping 10 out of 10 every single week.
He's hard done by the injury, and I think Trossard's preseason performance probably.
Yeah, but I
for
also
being
think
fair.
no one comes on for Saka at right wing, so that Saka doesn't come off. So if an issue is Saka, or if we're looking for a new thrust, just a different type of player at right wing, he should be the one that comes on. He's very different to Martinelli and Saka. I think he's a lot more cultured than Martinelli. Probably goes both ways a lot more than Martinelli, and it was just different. And also on the right wing to Saka, he's just right-footed. That is the main difference. So yeah, for me, he deserves a lot more playing time and was a good sub. And then Tomiyasu was more willing to be touchline left wing. Weird for me that to see him just be there, play 1-2s with Martinelli. It's just weird. But also he's
Very
more
weird.
willing to do it. And both are inverted fullbacks are now touchline left wing the whole 90. But when we say, Tierney would have been very beneficial to us, so just really wasn't available. But yeah, like the next game we play will be a Champions League. Well, one of the next games we play will be a Champions League, so we probably see Smith Rowe, Tomiyasu, Vieira play 70 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it is. In fact, no, I don't think we see that. I think the first Champions League game he'll play the starters, then the next one he'll probably play the bench players. But just
It will depend on the Brentford game, won't it? Like the Brentford game will, because they'll play the non-starters against Brentford. So I mean,
we'll see. Look, there's going to be having minutes, and of course Fabio Vieira again, another assist, another cameo, and kind of somebody that has now got third in assists for the time that he's been here, only behind Trossard and Saka for assists. So another player I really believed in that's been carrying kind of his performance with high momentum.
That assist, that exact type of assist is not the first time that he did it for Martinelli versus Aston Villa. Really, the same pass.
Yeah,
on the halfway line.
His tempo and pace of pass is unmatched. You know, in terms of final action, he's got probably the best in the squad. In terms of delivery.
But the thing is, I think what people, every one of the shows mentioned before, especially like all three of us have said it, is what he gives you is a versatile option off the bench. Like you want to play left centre mid, left centre mid. You want to play him right centre mid, right centre mid. You want to play him either wing you can play. You can play false nine. He's never played there for us, but he can play false nine. He's even played left back before. Like this is a guy that is extremely versatile, and if you want someone to really unlock a team that's sitting back, especially against the low block, he's that guy. And I do think this season, I think we'll see a lot of this 12th man, 13th man role for him, where he's just sort of brought on to really shut out games, really close up games. You saw the assist, very reminiscent of his assist against Aston Villa for Martinelli, where he finds the runner through the middle. But yeah, I think
a lot of our players have been called up. But I also think that Vieira coming off the bench at these 95th minute time, like being on the pitch at this time is just great because his tempo control is really different to the rest of the team. His final ball on the left hand side doesn't exist in our team. The crosses he's
do you remember? I don't know if you remember. They
don't play those type of passes really. So
there was a free kick that was just by the left corner flag. I don't know if you guys remember. Chris, I'm sure you on the rewatch you must have seen it. There was a I think it was second half quite deep, and I think Vieira was about to come on, and there was a free kick that was maybe 5-10 yards away from the left corner flag. And you're just thinking, this is Vieira's, man. He should be on the pitch right now. Come on, this like that situation is built for him. Vieira is ambipedal, yeah. But the last we wanted to talk about the subs and the goals, but the set pieces.
The big thing was the set pieces, right? Because I'll set you up, Curran, and I'll have you go on it because it was the 13th or the 12th corner, I think, before we scored with Declan Rice. And it wasn't just that, but the way that we've done our set pieces have been super creative. In this game, we saw a lot more short corner routines. I think to maximize Aaron Wan-Bissaka's really poor tracking of runners. I think that was a really, really big thing. If you noticed, it was a lot of times on the right-hand side, and it would catch out people. And then another thing that we kind of ended up doing was that we end up having a pod of players that start back post and then rush near post, but one stays behind.
And that seems twice.
Yeah,
we did that twice, and it was the only times we had success.
And we've been doing it all season, though. I think we've had a lot of praise that doesn't get given to Nicholas Jover. He gets a lot of criticism for our defensive set piece organization, but offensively, we've been great all season. Very inventive. What do you make of the set pieces, particularly offensive set pieces, Curran, since we had 12 of those? And we've really, by the way, one thing else, we also don't concede corners. In terms of actual corners, and
unless it's a bloody goal to equalize the bloody game.
We've conceded the least corners in the league.
Yeah. So,
but the corner we did concede against Fulham made us draw the bloody match, though. So it's still. I don't know. I'm still annoyed about the defensive routines personally, but on the offensive
side, don't concede like corners in terms of probably the least in the league in terms of conceding corners, not the goal. I mean, actual conceding.
I understand. I understand the point.
Defensively is part of it.
Yeah, of course. But the thing is, and Nick mentioned this on Twitter yesterday. Wan-Bissaka was hailed for his performance against Martinelli, but he conceded I think 5 or 6 corners.
Yeah, that's not you doing your job. By the way,
that's not you doing. That's not you doing your job. Yeah,
I'm a coach. I'm pissed at you for stopping, and allowing a corner on that end. You don't want a corner.
It was very purposeful. Martinelli was literally just going to the ball and kicking it. So many times he was just doing that.
But the thing is, and this is the next thing I was going to say, our set piece routines was one of our best chance creation mechanisms. Yeah. So every time, I know people talk about how you give Prowse a free kick, it's almost like a penalty. It's like you're giving us a high XG chance by doing it. I just wanted to talk quickly about the mechanism because I think a lot of people have talked about this new routine we've got going from back to front that we're trying, and I think a lot of people are missing the point because the reason why we're running back front post to front post is not to crowd the front post, but it's to release the back post. And I think a lot of people are missing it because we're trying to disguise with by going front post a couple of times, and then the one that's really dangerous is the one that goes over and hits the back post, which is how the goal was created. Because the reason why we do what we do is you can overload the front post, have the glancing header, and get the knockdown. But the more dangerous one is the one that goes around the block and hits, which is how Declan, controlled it on his chin and got the goal in. But the main thing for me is that it's not just overloading of space at the front, it's freeing the space at the back. And I think that's a massive thing. And I think teams are going to start to clock onto it at some point, because you can see we start off like outside the 6-yard box behind the back post. Like 3 or 4 of us, Rice, Gabriel, they run to the front post. Havertz tries to make that run to the front post, and then he pins his man at the front post, and then tries to get the knock on or the header himself. But this time we saw Rice at the back post. He held his run. I think everyone was expecting him to make the run, and he held his run. And we were trying to set that up whole game. That was literally it was like the Partey goal against Spurs. This is quite clearly a plan. Like the pullback and pulling standing still, as he was saying before, when to stand still is going to free up space, is perfectly on the pitch. And that's why I was so happy. I was so happy to see that, because it was a clear execution of a plan. So I just very happy with that.
It wasn't the first time that happened, though, because in the first half,
no, it wasn't the first.
Martinelli
we mixed it up, didn't we?
Martinelli found Nketiah, and Nketiah passed Saka edge of the box, and that goes top corner. If Dallo, I think it was, headed it like just before the line.
Was it
that
Dallo?
Probably goes to
was it Casemiro? It was Dallo or Casemiro? I think it was.
I think it was Dallo. But I also think like it's very purposeful, and I don't think it can be stopped. Like no team is gonna go out that far to mark us. The whole box would be empty, so I don't think it can really be stopped. It's just about where you pass, like switching who's the one that stays at the back.
Yeah.
Because if after Eddie stopped to the back, they didn't, like someone man marked Eddie. Yeah. So this time Rice was the one that sat at the back and put it in the corner. But I also think it's like very different. But it's great delivery to find someone on the chest from that distance is really perfect from Saka.
And it's just, I think that, there's a lot of stuff. Maybe we should get into it. We'll do a little bit of a tactical breakdown on the set piece routine, because they've been phenomenal, very inventive. And I think that there's been a lot of like basketball screens, quote unquote, in terms of what we enjoy.
You guys think it was a foul?
It was a foul on Gabriel. It was a foul on Gabriel. Like, genuinely, I was just thinking, like, I remember hearing that. I was like, these guys don't watch the game.
It is
literally like, you have those shorts, those YouTube shorts where the game is on like the video you're watching is on the top half and like a game is on the bottom half. Genuinely, that's the attention span of these guys. Genuinely, it's
I expect no difference when their leader is such a cuck at the post-match press conference.
He said we had a foul, we should have got a pen.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's emblematic of Manchester United, and you guys we weren't able to give you that preview, but look, I'm here to tell you that United were horrific. United, I think, are a team that believe that they're better than they are, and then fundamentally, we go back to it, lads. Of course, I'm so happy that we're going to have a look at the prediction table. It looks beautiful. I told Curran it would be restored. The King will be back in a couple of weeks. Do not worry. Of course, I got the prediction right, 3-1.
You're second.
And
you're second.
No, don't worry, guys. We're gonna win on points. We don't need to win on goal difference here. So it'll happen soon. But fundamentally, guys, it was an emotional win. It was an excellent connector from a perspective.
It's emotional that you're still
Arsenal.
second.
We're still first, Kurt. Don't worry. Number one in our hearts. And so
you're not going to speak about the Jesus goal.
I thought we already talked about it with the Jesus thing. I mean,
what do you think of that? Him taking so long to finish it. Like, do you think he would have? Quick. Do you think Eddie takes the time to cut it back, or do you think he just smashed it in on the left?
To be honest, I think Eddie would smash. I don't think he has the ability to Cruyff turn like that.
Look, people. First of all, clip that. Second of all,
you think he's got the ability to Cruyff turn left foot?
No, I just don't think.
Check.
I just don't. Think
I think he's saying clip that just in case he does it, innit?
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm saying clip that because the words Eddie would smash is
Oh, well. So of
but,
course. So I'm going to take over hosting responsibilities now. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. You hit the bell for notifications to know when, in fact, we
Is
do
that really the
upload.
last word we're gonna have? Okay, fine.
In terms of all the boys' socials down below, you can find us here at GeorgeV_AFC, or of course Chris at CKFTBL, and Kern at Current BoP. And we're here, Ball Over Passion on YouTube. We're at BoP Footy on the Twitter. So guys, thank you so much for sticking with us, and we will be back with some more content during this international break. We hope you guys enjoyed the review, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.
Peace.